Kia ora, this is Chris with Earth Sciences New Zealand, here to talk about more about weather and climate. I mean, what else do I talk about? This latest, podcast we've been calling it, because I do have this gift and curse to just keep talking about weather and climate. Look, I like talking about it. Hopefully you like listening to it. So it is the chill that is going to grab weather headlines again. We had a brief warm-up a couple days ago. We are recording this, by the way, Tuesday afternoon on the 19th of August. So Tuesday afternoon, 19th of August, we are recording this, and we're looking ahead for the next several days, and that will be the chill that'll be grabbing weather headlines. So this is early in the morning on Wednesday. We see a big Smurf. I'm probably dating myself, but yeah, when I was a kid, Smurfs. That was a cartoon, and I'm not ashamed to say that I really did enjoy the Smurfs. I'm not going to tell you who was my favorite Smurf. At any rate, you can see it is blue, and temperatures are going to be near or below zero for many interior sections of the North Island, 2 degrees, 3 degrees. Of course, higher terrain like Tongariro Crossing, which you don't want to be doing. You definitely do not want to be doing that. Will be sub-zero. Whakapapa, where some decent snow occurred on Tuesday. And South Island, similar story here. Many places near or below zero. You get closer to the urban centers and the coastline. Not quite as cold, but still temperatures 6-7 degrees around Christchurch early on Wednesday morning. There will be some wind. There you can see a pretty brisk southerly, especially for those in Wellington. I was there last week in Wellington. Look, Wellingtonians, I got to tip my hat to you. I don't know how you do it. The wind and the chill, it's just too much for me, my advanced age. Certainly my younger years, having grown up in upstate New York, where you get temperatures in winter on a really cold day, mind you, minus 17 during the day, minus 15 Celsius during the day. Those are the really, coldest of cold days. You'd think I'd be used to, 7 degrees in the brisk southerly. I'm not. Not anymore anyway. This is what's going to be happening for the Wellington area. You can see this is early in the morning on Wednesday, again, 6 o'clock, getting things going off to work. You can see a brisk southerly upwards of 30, 40, 50K wind gust, even 70K potentially. So it's not the strongest winds, particularly by Wellington standards, but when you chuck in the temperature, 7 degrees, 6 degrees, a gusty wind, we're talking wind chills near or below zero. So there you go. That's what you have to dress for. Going back to the wind, it's not just the lower North Island, I beg your pardon, that sees the gusty wind. You can see a bit of a gusty breeze, Banks Peninsula. Also over toward places like Hawke's Bay, the south coast of Taranaki, over toward Hawaii. There will be some gusty southerlies, and even coastal areas of West Auckland. We'll see some gusty breezes during the day. The good news, it should be generally dry. And there are some places that could use the rain, so I should be cautious when I qualify if it is good news or bad news. There you can see there will be a smattering of showers. So Wellington, if a gusty south wind in 6-7 degrees isn't enough for you, let's chuck in some showers as well. So you have to deal with that for your morning commutes in the lower North Island, including Wellington. Also, you can see that, look at that, you can see this line of showers, this Congo line of showers moving through Cook Strait and toward Taranaki. Well, guess what? That's the wind flow. Yeah, it's kind of an ocean effect, kind of like lake effect. Maybe I will get into it a little bit. So basically, the ocean temperatures are probably around 13 degrees, 10 degrees, and 850 aloft. We're looking at temperatures, certainly near or below zero. Yeah, below zero. So that temperature difference at 850, 1,500 meters, 1,600 meters up, and the surface of the ocean creates the instability, and that creates this, the shower. So there you have it. Also some showers over toward Hawke's Bay, but generally dry for the rest of the country. You can see a few odd showers northland, but that should about do it. Those should dissipate with time. Those showers in Wellington, they're going to be around. They'll ease with the day, but we can't promise dry weather probably till near sunset for Wellington. And for the South Island, a generally dry day after those very early showers in northern and eastern Canterbury. Those showers in Hawke's Bay probably continue past sunset, by the way, it looks like. But look, generally dry with the sunshine. Those are the exceptions I highlighted, the Taranaki region and eastern lower portions of the North Island. Temperatures are going to recover, but not that much. High temperatures, there we go. This is around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We can kind of get a squiz here. 12, 13 degrees in the Waikato. Kind of cool stuff. Notice 13 degrees for western portions of the South Island. Actually, this is going to be a decent area to be because there's not going to be much in the way of wind. We're going to have some sunshine and 13 degrees for the west coast of the South Island in mid to late August. I think that's a W. That's a win. I mean, it could be worse. Another cold morning comes at us for, what day is this? No, we go to Thursday. So just switching from our high-res model to another model, which is still high-res, just not as. That's Friday. So let's back things up to Thursday. 6 o'clock roughly. There we go. Yeah, the Smurf hasn't left, right? I mean, look at this. You can see some of the higher elevations well below zero. Now, granted, we're talking, in the alpine regions of the Southern Alps, some -9s across. Ooh, -10. My gosh. But again, that's pretty high up interior Otago. For the populated areas, urban centers, 6-7 degrees. Wellington, something of that vein. Also Christchurch, 7 degrees. So a similar morning temperature-wise in Chacha early on Thursday morning. The Waikato, again, near below zero. And we'll get a frost because not much of a wind. So expect frosty conditions. Look, I know last week those flying out of Hamilton had some delays. I think it was midweek because of frost and planes had to be de-iced. Look, I wouldn't rule it out. So if you got an early flight Thursday morning, even Friday morning, which we'll get to in a moment, that's on the table. Could happen. We can't rule it out. But certainly a chilly morning. But at least, as I say, the wind is still a little bit, my gosh, still southerly in Wellington Thursday morning. Look at that. I mean, oh boy, still got to deal with the wind chill in Welly on Thursday. What about the rain? Lingering showers, eastern North Island with that southerly flow. So areas exposed to that southerly flow coming off the water. Yep, still some lingering showers, but that is the exception, certainly not the rule. I did mention, there we can see high temperatures, by the way, before we move on. Comparable, maybe just a smidge or a skosh higher. One of my favorite words, skosh. It's a Japanese derivation. I think comes from skoshi. Isn't that right, Daryl? Skoshi? Yeah, skoshi. Daryl's our resident Japanese expert. He's taken a lot of trips to Japan, so we kind of lean on him for that sort of thing. Yeah, so you can see 12, 13, 14 degrees. Similar nice day for the west of the South Island. Looking pretty good. Boy, chilly weather in Christchurch. Only around 10, 11 degrees for a maximum. So a nice day for, the layered clothing and perhaps a hearty soup with a thick, crusty bread. That'll do you right for the day on Thursday and probably for much of the country, not just Christchurch for that matter. So Friday morning, another cold start. There we go. Look at that, 6 o'clock in the morning. Once again, Waikato, maybe not quite as chilly, but certainly near below zero. And yeah, you can see cold temperatures throughout the entire South Island. Look, one way we can slice this is we can lean on our ensemble modeling. And we can say, right, okay, what are the odds for going below 0 Celsius, right? So let's go to Wednesday morning. Where you see the red, those are high chances, high odds. And where you see the orange, we're talking medium, and then some. We use the word some on purpose and not low, just to avoid miscommunication. Oftentimes people think low, and they kind of equate that to no risk, which is not true. There is some risk, just not medium or high. So you can see Wednesday, certainly the South Island away from the coast will be getting into those sub-zero temperatures. Central North Island, chiefly over higher terrain. But if you go to Thursday, you can see, I see that kind of grows a bit in the Waikato, what I was talking about earlier. So medium to high chances for sub-zero and probably a decent hardy frost again. What about Friday? Not much change. You can see it's still medium to high chances across the central portion of the North Island. Even some, my gosh, parts of Northland. Holy smokes. Yeah, it could be a frost in some of the more colder remote areas of central Northland because, the island gets quite thin up there away from the water. And then on Saturday, still another cold. So look, we got some chilly mornings coming up for the Waikato and the, I guess, the usual suspects. of the South Island. But not much rain, as I say. Here's Friday at 6 o'clock, just a few showers, eastern portions of the North Island. Still, look, here's the ridge right here. You can see the ridge. As long as the ridge is to our west, that's going to direct this, can I go to my, yes, I can go to this. Let's go to my arrow. So we're directing this kind of south to southwest flow. Now, it does, to be fair, it does kind of bend around over here toward Gisborne and over toward Hawke's Bay. So that's more of a due southerly. But the flow like so. So it goes clockwise. Or anti-clockwise. No comments. I have an excuse. I'm from the Northern Hemisphere originally. So these things, they're kind of just tucked away, and sometimes they just come out, unexpectedly. But counterclockwise or anti-clockwise flow. So we get the cold winds on the front end, and we get the warmer winds, or what we call a return flow, on the back end. And that will happen. That is a very nice segue, Chris, to what's going to happen, kind of a sneak peek into the weekend. It's never too soon to look at the weekend, is it? Always good to have a sneak peek, even if it's recording this on a Tuesday afternoon on the 19th of August. So let's put this forward. Here's early Saturday morning. High pressure in control. You can see over toward the west. So on the west side, there's a northwest wind. And so the wind will be light, and that's why we'll probably have another chilly morning Saturday morning, as I showed you. What do you mean when I showed you? See this? Saturday morning. The odds for sub-zero temperature still pretty, actually, in fact, if anything, they kind of grow between Friday morning and Saturday morning. You see that, particularly for the North Island. Look, it's no coincidence. There's an OG rule in meteorology. Basically, it's your second night rule, and that basically is the second night after a frontal passage, or the second morning is typically your coldest morning. Not always, but nonetheless, you can see we're probably into the third morning. So it's a rule, not a hard set rule. But high pressure overhead this time of the year for another few weeks. The nights still outweigh the days, so nights are longer than days. So with high pressure overhead, we're able to manufacture that chill, and that's what we're going to be dealing with on Saturday morning. There still may be some showers. Look, the guidance is showing this a bit of a wrinkle. You can see this right here. There may be some showers for Tarafati, Gisborne, and parts of Hawke's Bay. It's unclear. In one way, we can kind of, if we look at rainfall, right, and we're going to say, what are the odds for getting 10 millimeters or more of rain in a particular day? You can see there is a bit of a signal. There is some uncertainty, and that is directly related to how this guy responds right here. So depending on this behavior, there could be some showers on Saturday for Tarafati, Gisborne, maybe Hawke's Bay, maybe far eastern Bay of Plenty. But, again, this is Tuesday. We're looking at Saturday. It's several days out. These things may change, but we did say this is a sneak peek, not a full-fledged comprehensive look at the weekend forecast. But overall, the weather is looking pretty favorable, pretty palatable for much of the country on Saturday. There's not going to be much in the way of wind. Look at this. I mean, geez. Look at this. Like, the air is still. Is that right? I mean, I feel like something's missing. Huh. Yeah, I mean, look at light wind. Something is dodgy with that, I feel like. Well, I'll tell you what we can do is see if it's dodgy. We can go to our ensemble modeling and let's look at wind. Let's clean that up. Odds of 40K wind gust. All right, so that was dodgy. For some reason, ignore what I showed you before. There was something off with that. But nonetheless, you can see what are the odds of getting wind gusts greater than 40K on Saturday. Pretty darn low. You can see some places where there may be some chances over toward the eastern part of the North Island. I mean, 40K wind gusts is not that much. I mean, if you're from my neck of the woods, you like miles per hour. From the UK, we're talking 6 times 4, talking 25K or 25 miles per hour, excuse me. Not high. I mean, you'll notice it. And in fact, if we go to 70K, it's virtually non-existent. So the message is that not much wind for much of the country on Saturday. Let's go back to the global model, deterministic model. See this high? So watch the high. So there's the high. Yeah. It's going to shift east And once that happens, we get into that return flow. And that will tug down some warmer air. Let's go to our 850 temperatures. If you are a regular viewer, thank you. If you're a first-time viewer, welcome. Hopefully going to that former category. But this is temperatures at about a mile up, about 1,600 meters above the ground. One of my favorite things to look at, because what you're doing is that you get a real good sense of the temperature theme of the atmosphere. And notice we're just using your classic quintessential blue is cold, yellow is warm, orange and red are pretty darn warm, if not hot. Again, pretty, decently up in the atmosphere. So if I zoom out just a little bit, skosh, you can see how early in the piece, look at this. You can see first of all, you can see the airflow coming directly from the south. So that's a key. That's why it's going to be so darn chilly. We have southerlies, right? And then you can see the blue color, the deep blue color. So that jives. And you can see with time, as we get to, say, Friday and especially now Saturday, we're starting to get into this out here. So this is milder air. It's not as cold as this stuff out to the south and east right here that I'm pointing to. So we are going to see temperatures starting to warm up as we go toward, say, Sunday. And there is a real, look at that. Yeah, you can see that right there. That is a puff of warmer air. There's a bit of a low. You can see that right there. If you don't believe me, let's go to the surface map. Let's clean that up. And there is the low. So here is a front. We get a flow of air ahead of the front here, and that will bring moisture in the form of rain. So it looks like Sunday night, especially Monday. There it is, Monday. Let's clean this up. Monday, we have rain coming to the lower west coast of the South Island, and this is going to signal a change. So after this chilly weather that we're going to see this week, particularly in the mornings, the weekend is going to be a pivot point. So the weekend, we're going to be pivoting early in the weekend from the chill this week to the warmer weather next week. So the weekend is that spectrum of change. And in fact, if we go to a different global model and we get a kind of an idea of what may happen as we look ahead. So as I'm going through this, maybe a little hard to read. If you're viewing this on your smart TV, awesome. It's a good way to view YouTube videos. A little easier to see. But this is the date. So this is the 29th of August. So we're going to the last couple days of winter. So let's back this up even more. So you can see here comes the high, 25th, right? And then you can see as we get toward the 28th, we start to get into some pretty brisk westerlies. Low pressure down here, high pressure over here. So we're directing this kind of west to northwest flow. So it's not a cold wind direction. These aren't southerlies. These aren't southwesterlies. These aren't northwesterlies. And you can see that air coming off Australia, and that is going to help support warmer temperatures next week. Next week is going to be significantly warmer for all of the country. And with that warmth will come rain. So 28th, again, mind the clock here, mind the date, 29th. And you can see there will be these waves of low pressure and rain. So I guess in summary, expect next week, that last week of August, to be a warmer week and a more unsettled week with episodes or episodic rounds of rainfall across much of the country. And that will, and we'll have to watch the north. You can see the model is predicting a low well toward northeast. That should stay toward north and east, but we're going to have to keep a careful weather eye on that. But that should stay away. And we're going to be into this warmer period, this wetter period. In fact, let's go to our NEWA 35. Why not? So what we can do, ignore week one. I know we have some green here. That's actually in the rear view mirror. That's the rain that occurred Monday and Tuesday. So if we look to the 23rd to the 29th of August, so the 1st of September is a Monday. So this is basically the end of this weekend to the start of next weekend. You can see how we're getting these. We don't see as much brown. In fact, what I'm going to do, I want to disappear here for a second. You can see how there's wetness favored, especially the last couple days of August into the first few days of September. Look, remember the video I made about a week and a half ago talking about the end of August, early September being a time when we're going to have to deal with potentially some heavy rain or a change in the pattern? That still is looking to be the case. Perhaps a bit of a reprieve, and then maybe some opportunities for more wet weather for the middle part of September. Meanwhile, coming back on screen, actually, we disappear, sorry. You can see how areas on the western and lower South Island, a lot of brown. Look, we're going to have to watch this because this is an area we're going to have to watch longer, in, the next several weeks and months, for potential lack of rainfall because of this emerging La Nina. So just by way of example, let's look at the rainfall anomaly. So for the month of July, July was a dry month for much of the South Island. And so far, for the first 2.5 weeks of August, it's also dry. Now, we do have some rain coming for the west of the South Island. But look, when you see what's happened and you see the outlook, something we're going to have to kind of keep our eyes on, all right? So I think that's it for me. I've gone on long enough. We'll try to update things. Look, we have our spring outlook. I'll take this opportunity to say we will be releasing our spring outlook, probably not the first day of September. That's a Monday, probably the second day of September, a Tuesday. So that will be what we think the themes will be for the spring season. And with La Nina, La Nina, an emerging climate driver, we'll see how that may impact our spring weather. Look, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. I'm Earth Sciences meteorologist Chris Brandolino. We'll see you next time. Namahi Nui.